All right, guys, what's up? Welcome to Onelife Podcast. Here with Merriliz, who is a Transformation Facilitator, and your company is
Yin City.
Yin City. And what does that mean exactly?
So, which one? Transformation Facilitator?
Yeah.
Yes. So, I basically help people to become aware of their blocks in wealth and relationship, which really is rooted in a lot of early childhood programming when we were in the mother's belly up to age 6.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, there are so many even psychological studies that really date back to showing how just the development of how as children we don't process things intellectually, we're emotionally based. So a lot of patterns and behaviors and programs stem from that prime time from being up to 5 years of age, but also when we're in the mother's belly, even the time of child rearing, because we are just feeling everything that the mother is feeling. And so sometimes we have these behaviors and patterns and thought processes. We have no idea where they're coming from, or maybe they're just repetitive. And they're some of my clients and even my experiences from my journeys, which much of my training is from India. It's in Ono Academy.
Okay.
And they'll witness, and you can't go there through the mind. It's only through meditation and going through in a space of relaxation where you can really be open to witness and listen. And that's where I get to help facilitate people to really become aware and see, oh, when I was 4, this happened. And for instance, I've had a client that just really felt always uncomfortable to speak about his like personal self, or just felt like he'd always be rejected. He didn't ever feel like powerful to speak his creative nature. And it wasn't until the process he saw that when he was a young age, he was always just told to be quiet, to not speak. Even his parents, when they would go out on gatherings, just stop, like just in his dead tracks, like when he was playing. He
to be seen, not heard.
Yes. So that instantly, growing up, he just didn't feel... Oh, thank you. He didn't feel like he could openly...
Filter.
There's a cord hanging. He didn't feel like he could actively express himself fully. And a lot of the what came up for him were just the triggers of always being stopped and rejected and unaccepted. And it repetitively showed up in life. So
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, though.
I mean, that's like all of us. So if there's one thing that happens from a young age that we haven't healed fully, it'll continually to show itself in all relationships.
And that's just one thing. That could be like multiple different things that someone suffers from. That's interesting. So what you saying you discover it through meditation?
Yeah, so I use movement and meditation as a method for people to become aware.
Is that the number one method that you use, or is that just part of a system?
You know what? Meditation, mindfulness practice is a way to allow your body to just relax and the nervous system to just be at a space of calm. And that is when the mind begins to clearly think. So the science really is the breath, the mind, and really just allowing for yourself to be in a space to surrender. And it is through meditation.
I like the word surrender. Yeah, and we always talk about like you're always distracted, pulling every which way, when you're never even just quiet or present. And then doing that meditation takes you to that next level. You're actually going with a purpose, right? And I've been meditating because of this podcast a couple months now, and it's been amazing. And when I don't do it, I feel a little bit off, but I feel like my base center is a lot more relaxed and level-headed and calm and collected, like I've never had before. And I couldn't imagine if I continue to go, how much deeper and better that's going to become. And how long have you been meditating for?
Oh man, thankfully I grew up in a spiritual community in San Diego, and I learned how to meditate at age 5.
So do you find you're constantly progressing even now at your age? And
it's interesting. It's even as a meditation teacher, I witness how I can not be as consistent with my practice, but at the same time how instant it is to drop in, like in like a matter of seconds. Even if
really?
the more, really, I will tell you, like, a key secret ingredient is to build a bond with the divine, whatever name you have for the divine, whether it's universe, light. It's building a friendship and not seeing the universe as something outside or up in the air, or God as something far. It's having a friendship and communicating with that internally constantly. And so when I have that communication, it's so instant. I feel, I'm TMI, anything. You could be like sitting on a toilet and instantly feel like this immediate connection, a sense of oneness. You could be driving, you could be mindfully eating, and immediately the heart will feel open. It's just this inner practice of having an inner dialogue with yourself.
But I'm guessing that takes time, right?
It would you'd be surprised how rapidly you could build that relationship just by having an inner dialogue with source regularly.
Gotcha. That's okay. That's deep. I want to come back to that.
Yeah.
But let's so as far as you guiding people through, like you mentioned financial and you mentioned relationship. What does that mean exactly? Like you mentioned one part of it.
Yeah, so really all of life is relationships. When you ask people how they're doing, it's really their state of happiness or depletion of energy is rooted in a relationship.
That's interesting.
Because who are you? People can say, oh, I'm an accountant. Or I'm, my father's son. I'm a husband. I'm a partner in this business. All of those are relationships.
So even a job is a relationship.
Oh yeah, because how are you relating to people? Or your job, how are you being of service? That is a relationship.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it like that way.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you aren't happy in your relationships, it's going to show up in how you show up for yourself and other people. And
okay.
Number one, when we have a drainage of energy, meaning a true friendship is if you feel completely yourself. So if you are sitting with someone and you are an open book and completely feel free to be who you are.
And dropping that guard, being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. And where you are receiving energy. So you're both, you're giving energy and you're receiving it. It's a fluid flow.
So that person's guard's got to be down too. You got to be on the same level with one another. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, it's more of like an ability to completely be who you are. That's freedom.
Okay.
And they can be who they are. And
how often does that happen?
It
sounds like it's pretty rare, right?
I feel like because emotional intelligence is so much more of an awareness now, people are dropping in much more. Like vulnerability, authenticity. I want to say that it's more common, and maybe because I practice this. However, the world needs to be able to see that it is more common. The more you see it's like not common, it's rare. I find people say it's rare, but it's only because they believe it is.
Okay. Do you think it maybe is your environment though? That's what you're surrounding yourself with, and maybe outside here it's not so common? It's like when you go to the gym, you think everyone goes to the gym, and then you realize that you go to a theme park that 99% of people are fat and overweight. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like you always get caught up in your own circle. Yeah. So are you doing that, or do you commonly think that more people are more open and more vulnerable?
I actually believe that more people are more vulnerable and open. It's the gateway for people to feel safe to be that.
Okay.
And so I'm actually always that. And even
that was my next question.
Like even at a Starbucks or a coffee shop, I'm not a surface person. And so because I am who I am, I'm genuinely intrigued by others, and I'm really curious.
Talk to me about that. I got two questions. So not being a surface person, what does that mean? Does that mean you generally ask people how they are and you care? And that's why I struggle in America, especially in Vegas.
Tell me.
Because in Australia, if I ask you how you are, I really actually want to know how you are.
Same.
I'm generally asking, and I want to know, and I want you to talk to me, and I want to develop some type of rapport, some friendship. Here, it's like people just checking in, getting paid, they don't even talk to you. They'll ignore you half the time. And I have a very hard time with that. And I've had a couple of Australians sitting in that seat and tell me the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you like to connect with people. You actually like to.
I am.
It's more than just getting paid or getting your coffee.
Of course. It's never.
Yeah, that's amazing. I haven't heard that very often here.
People crave connection. So in like bringing it even back to the relationships, people crave that connection, and because they aren't comfortable always receiving it or being open enough to let people see them, they do the opposite. Instead of connecting, they are afraid to connect, and then they don't. Also, reading back to early childhood as well is seeing what was taught to us, or feeling rejected or feeling hurt from early childhood, and just not being completely open to receive what's really right in front of us. That, and of course the evolving technology, which is definitely distracting.
So I've got a question for you. So do you find by being more present, being more vulnerable, being more open, that attracts more people to do it back to you?
Yeah, the more you embody who you are, the more the universe is just going to reflect to you more of that.
Okay, that's what I thought you'd say. That's interesting. And you mentioned relationships can affect financial. How does that work?
Okay, so let's break it down. So as mentioned before, everything that we are is rooted in relationship, our state of happiness, our state of mind. And you're either in a state of consciousness where you're in flow, which is, everybody can experience the joy of just being in nature. You don't think about tomorrow or yesterday. You're admiring the present. You're feeling the sunshine. You're breathing in the air. Or if you're in love, you're like fully present. Or when you get scared, someone goes boom, and you're like, ah! You're not thinking about yesterday, tomorrow. You're here. So when you're in that awareness, when you're present, you're in a state of flow. It's a flow state. It's also called a oneness state.
Oneness.
Oneness state.
Oneness state. Okay.
What's opposite is where most of human consciousness tends to be, which is okay. It's as long as we're aware of it, is we're in a state of disconnect or in a state of stress. It actually brings us to lower states of consciousness. So when we're in a stress state, it's like, even if anybody could be this, even if you wake up in the morning or you open the fridge, you're like, should I have this or should I have this? And then you're like sitting there, you're like, well, if I have that, should I do this? Or if I have that? And then you make a choice. Say you just have the orange juice. And then even when you have the orange juice, your mind is thinking, I should have had that. I should have that. You're not able to be at peace with what's right here. The mind is always just going everywhere. And that's just the nature of the mind. But really the root of it is, when we're in those states of consciousness, they take up our energy, and when we're in a low state of consciousness, we tend to be addictive, we tend to be compulsive, and we have a repetitive nature. And when we're in a low state of consciousness, it attracts, of course, like attracts like, right? So it's going to show up first in the physical body, where naturally the stress systems of the body take up these energy forms that show up as ailments and illness in the body. Second, it shows up in your relationships, because then we're only operating from this level of consciousness of a cyclical stress or draining of energy, or we're addictive. We're wanting to do something and we know that's something we shouldn't do, but we do it anyway. We're just in a low state of consciousness. And
can I jump in for a second? So you're talking about like the flow state, and you're talking about a simple thing, going to the fridge. Are you saying you literally shouldn't be overthinking your choices, and just like, what are you saying exactly? Like, as far as choosing your breakfast?
Yeah. So I'm saying that.
Is that a silly question?
No, it's not. It's a great question. It was an example as to show how the mind is in natural conflict, and it's to be aware of the conflict. But what happens is, even when we make a decision, the mind is still loud and thinking like, oh, I should have done the other thing.
Or justifying it.
Yes, and we can't even enjoy the choice that we made.
Okay.
And so just to witness how the mind is just always going to bring you in different directions, versus when you're in flow state, say you chose the orange juice and you're choosing to just experience the orange juice.
Be present and...
Then you're in that flow.
Okay. And does that mean not feeling guilty because it's orange juice?
Yes.
And all these like repercussions that
and that's
good or bad.
That would be a conflict state.
Okay. I can definitely relate to that. Yeah. Even when you're eating something good, you're like, oh, this is good. Right? I'm doing this because of this, and this.
Yeah.
But you're not actually like, yeah, that's kind of deep stuff, isn't it? Yeah. It's so simple, but it's like, I think I understand. Yeah.
Versus being so present that the thoughts aren't there, you're just here.
just here.
Yeah.
I like that. Gotcha. Continue for me.
Yeah, thank you for making that clarification. So yes, number one, it affects the body. Number two, it affects our relationships. So you'll see that when people are in these compulsive behaviors or in a low state of consciousness, you'll see the type of experiences that they'll have with the people who tend to not be the best people to really engage or collaborate with. Maybe they'll get duped or betrayed, or I watch people who have hurt in a relationship and then they haven't healed it, and then they'll move on to the next relationship and recycle
Quickly, right, and mask it.
And then so many things happen in their life that's like, it's not the external world. This is something that is repetitive, being happening again and again, because in something inside of you is creating this, right? And you have to take that ownership. So, and then thirdly, it shows up in your finances. So wealth attracts wealth. When you see people who are, just take Oprah, when you're in a good state of consciousness, when you have good relationships, wealth can't help but come to you, because you are in a state of awareness that abundance is here and everything is flowing, and universe will just respond to what you are. When you're in a low state of consciousness, you don't see what's possible. You're thinking everything is limited. Of course, the universe is only going to show you what that is, because that's where you're living from.
So I'm a big believer, like what you put out, the person that you are is the type of person that you'll attract back to you. So you're saying that happened in your finances as well?
Yes.
It
shows up especially and I've witnessed this in marriages as well, in partnerships, where when there's hurt in relationship, especially if the woman isn't, if there's any type of abuse, physical, mental, verbal abuse, the hurt in relationship brings down the consciousness in relationship, brings down the ability to create wealth, because you do have an energy of substance that is always overflowing, ever present. If you're not aware to tap into that vibration, I know if you're familiar with even Abraham Hicks, speaking of the vortex, definitely will look into that. And it's speaking on being that vibrational embodiment for which that source universe can even show up for you in that vibrational frequency. It's like, it's just a matter of moments, because you're tapping into what is true for you, versus when if lack and if pain and guilt and shame is your reality, it's hard. It's not necessarily hard, but it is definitely a reality that shows you some depth of where even you're not able to see the other side. And then wealth and finances can tend to be also a reflection of limitation, of lack and scarcity. So
this is like some deep stuff that I mean, I'm listening and I'm taking it in, but it is a lot.
Yeah, and sometimes people don't even realize. I will tell you this one form of financial wealth that definitely can be substantial if you have not forgiven in relationship is the unforgiveness and the inability to unforgive, the inability to forgive. If you are hurt in relationship, could be your mother, could be your father, a past friend, even old friend. If it hasn't been fully allowed to process, or it's there, you haven't faced it, and it keeps showing up in some cycle. It doesn't have to show up in a relationship form. It could show up in the body. It could show up as a form of wealth. And so that's why I will tell you, I've witnessed people, and I've seen it with my students, just one effort just to look at why am I feeling this still, and can I be responsible and proactive about addressing this old hurt. And I had a student who just hadn't spoken to her father in about 4 to 5 years. And she went through my Journey of Transformation, which is a course that I lead. And she just witnessed her hurt and also knew that it was her responsibility. And upon reaching out, not only did they rekindle a relationship, she said so much wealth came after. She was not expecting the wealth, but the mending with her father, shortly after she acquired land and she received all these opportunities that she said she didn't expect the wealth to come, but a shift in relationship with her father created such a natural chain of events that invited growth in her financial development.
So you're saying that that was one of those blockages you're talking about.
She rooted it back to a most important relationship of all is our relationship with our parents.
So you mentioned like the relationship, dealing with like the trauma, dealing with things that happened. What is the right way to do that?
Ooh,
so you and I dating, we break up, we're married, whatever it is, like how, like you're saying not to mask it, ignore it, to deal with it. What is the right way is there a right way of dealing with it? Does that go back to meditation? Is that just being present and thinking about it and not ignoring it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all on point. It's exactly that, actually. So we need to recognize that emotions are natural and they're not meant to be resisted. What resists persists, right? But what happens
resists persists. I like that.
Yeah.
So if you mask it, you bury it, it's just going to keep coming up until it's dealt with. That's pretty powerful.
And so just what you said, if we mask it and we
suppress.
Number one, it shows up in the body. Number two, it shows up in our relationships, because then what? All of a sudden, something small and you just blow up in someone you love, your child, your mother, your father. And it's because you suppressed it and it shows up in your relationships.
That could be something from 5 years ago, potentially. Exactly. Okay, that's interesting.
It shows up in your inner circle relationships. Lastly, it'll show up in your finances, because at some level of consciousness, there is a hurt or a form of unforgiveness that has not been mended, and it's showing up in a form of being able to receive.
Okay, so you and I are married. You cheat on me. I've got that hurt. How do I go about dealing with that?
Okay. So good. So everybody is different in their ways of processing. I would say that one of the fastest and easiest ways, obviously, is movement, is allowing for the body to move. That's why I use movement as a lot of the modalities.
What do you mean move? Just movement, exercise in general?
Movement, running, meditation is definitely part of it, but movement as allowing to shake out the consciousness of what's been built up in the body.
That's interesting.
When I was betrayed, I used movement as a form to release the stress and anxiety that was building up in the body. When you're naturally in movement, what happens is at the base of the spine, it's a creative life force energy that everybody has. It's also called the Kundalini. It rises up through the...
Is that an Indian word, or is that a...
It is. It's the creative life force. It's a very powerful form of energy. It's in many traditions, not just...
Kundalini.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just the life force energy that rises up through the body. And naturally, even in science shows, when we move the body, not only is there healthy dopamines and stress factors, it's the ability to reset and calm the nervous system. Not just calm the nervous system, but reset the mind and calm the body so that you're more present and aware.
Okay.
And then when you're in a space of bigger awareness, the mind is clear. So movement, and then the ability to take full responsibility and give yourself permission to experience what's coming up. Because, as you've mentioned earlier, when we suppress, it does not do any of us good, because we're not facing what's there.
Okay.
So you witness the emotion, the anger, the pain.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you don't...
Whether you cry or you're upset or you're... Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do, because that's actually facing it.
Yeah. But it's...
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that happened to me a couple of years ago. Okay. And it's not why I asked, it's just something I thought of. But I did not mask it, and I did deal with it, and I didn't suppress it.
Yes.
And I didn't drink. I actually mentioned this the other day. I didn't drink or mask or sleep around or date, or I didn't do anything for probably 6 to 8 months. Awesome. And I just continued going to the gym and doing my thing. But by doing so, I was present with it. Mm-hmm. And it sucked and it hurt. Yeah. And I was angry and I was upset and all this, like this roller coaster. But then eventually I was like, I think I'm ready. Yeah. I think I'm okay. Yeah. And I was able to talk about it. I was able to tell people about it. So is that an example of what you're talking about?
High five. It's a perfect example.
Okay.
It's like children who they throw a tantrum and they're angry. They either cry, they pout, they cry, and then they're over it. The next moment they look and they're like, oh, let me go do this. And
Okay. So that's a quicker form of it.
It's like
okay.
Children are so awake because they are who they are until around the 6th year where we become more socialized. So that is the beauty of witnessing and seeing and embracing. It's life, right?
Okay.
It's not denying what's real. It's allowing it to be expressed. And that's why you're ready. Versus people who carry it. And I've witnessed people who go into other relationships still carrying unforgiveness, and they're not able to be vulnerable in their relationships.
I don't think you'd be able to be anything, to be honest.
They numbed a part of it out.
Numb being a good word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay.
There's love there, I can see, but I know very close people who they still don't have a form of like vulnerability, of like strength in relationship.
Can you do this by yourself, or do you recommend you like a professional or a counselor?
All.
Okay.
It's really dependent on you and.
Is that like a self-awareness thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Because definitely you want to be able to have guidance if you're not able to see it within your own self.
The reason I was able to, because I read a lot,
mm-hmm.
always self-educating, and it just kind of made sense for me.
Yes.
But 5 years prior, probably not. It probably would have been completely exactly the opposite.
Yeah, I feel you. A while ago, same thing happened to me while I was in India. I was actually betrayed, and by a friend who I became in partnership with, a romantic partnership with, and I couldn't believe it. I was so hurt, and I, especially with all my trainings from India, I was like, I will never take this into another relationship. I will make sure that I do this work.
Okay.
And I personally, I have an altar where I sit and I meditate. And I remember just one day out of nowhere, just like feeling so much pain. And I was like, I just was crying. And I was like, I cannot continue this pain forward. I'm not going to suppress this. I'm going to deal with this right now. And I just like surrendered it. I just gave it to the higher power. And I said, I am in so much pain. You need to help me. And asking is a great way.
That's interesting.
To receive.
How far afterwards before you surrendered? Was this something you did straight away, or did it take you months of like, hey, enough's enough?
Months. It was definitely.
Even though you knew better.
Yeah, there's no knowing better. I learned that there's no timeline in terms of healing. Okay,
so that's what it took you. And then how long of surrendering and doing the work did it take you to kind of able to move on?
I would say, it was very interesting because I never had closure with that person, and that person never apologized until maybe a year later, and they still never apologized.
Yeah.
It was the acceptance of this person could never be the person that I expected a man should be. And they didn't have the program or capabilities to be that. So when you can just have compassion, because we had a conversation, I remember witnessing this person, and I teach this a lot in my courses, and it's called The Art of Listening. And it's really not even pertaining to what the other person is saying. It's witnessing what's coming up for you. The work is always to listen what's coming up for you. Oh, I can't accept this person. Oh, I can't stand the way that they look right now. I can't even believe that I'm experiencing. I can't believe I chose this person. I'm just witnessing all of the things that are coming up for me. And the more you witness it, like, the state of flow state or a oneness state instead of a state of conflict or stress, I witnessed like bliss in witnessing all, excuse my language, the shit that was coming up. Like, oh, I can't forgive this person. Oh, look at me, I'm judging this person right now. And I started to laugh internally because it's like, I am not denying the truth of what's right now. And that's healing. You're just witnessing all the things that you probably wouldn't give yourself permission to look at.
That's very interesting. So you're witnessing, but what are you doing by witnessing it? Is that your way of dealing with it and moving on, or is that your way? Like, what are you actually doing by hearing those things?
Yeah, so you're giving yourself permission to be free, to liberate yourself from whatever is right there. It's not even, the intent is not even necessarily maybe for anything to heal or to do this. Really, the intent is to be here. It's to witness.
This is I love it, but it's definitely outside my comfort zone.
Is it?
But that's
but
why
you practice all this.
But that's why I like it, and that's why I love having you here, because the stuff that maybe I do a little bit, but it's very interesting to hear. Like, it's very interesting. I find it very like not even sure the word I'm looking for, but it's really nice.
You're so
it's cool.
You're lighting up because you are this.
I think I see bits and pieces, and I was like, there's a whole way I can grow on this. I've got a question though. You go through something like you did. Do you look at that as a good thing now? Like a growth, one of the best things could happen to you.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. I feel like whatever happens to you, not necessarily happens for a reason, but there's always growth and potential to grow from it. If you're going through something at the moment, how do you get in that mindset of like, this isn't the end of the world. I'm going to come out the other side. I'm also going to come out stronger and better for it.
First thing, gratitude.
Gratitude. What do you mean by that?
The moment anything happens, oh my gosh. Well, I remember I got into a car accident in 2019. Someone totaled my car right away. Thank you, God. Like, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm like here. I'm good.
Thank you weren't hurt.
It's everything.
So you're not thanking for the accident?
Yeah. Well, everything. So even when it happened, I don't even realize. So here, I'll give you an example with even that. It's at that moment, obviously, it's like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Like, someone totaled my car. So they ran a stop sign. And I didn't give myself the permission to go down a rabbit hole of why.
Like the victim mentality.
Yeah. I just went into like, thank you. I know this is serving a purpose. Like, I know
that's gotta be hard to do.
Train your mind to do this. The more you do this, the easier it becomes, and the more it just becomes your natural state. Everything
I agree.
That happens to me,
someone else is going to think you're crazy hearing that, but I totally get what you're saying, and I totally agree.
And I'll tell you what happened is, firstly, I was going to a chiropractor, and my spine was not in full alignment. And this accident, they couldn't believe it, brought my spine closer to the middle. Okay, so that's one. That's like not even like. Secondly, I was expecting. I don't share this with a lot of people. So I was expecting a $40,000 investment to come, and I hadn't received it. And that car accident gave me a settlement of $40,000.
Oh, wow.
And so I invested that back into the business and was able to do so much for my company. But I witnessed, and I kind of laughed with universe. I was like, I was praying and seeking, and I'm like, look at that. I can't believe that happened. I wouldn't ever want an accident for it to happen like that. However, it taught me so much in the midst of even being on the other side of being hit and being in a space to grow, because gratitude will take you out of, like you said, not only the victim mentality, but it'll take you into a higher vibration of energy to welcome the good that's already there to give.
I thought that's what you had
already here
to attract.
You receive it, and you're just like in a level of like, you're already saying to the universe, thank you so much for where I'm at right now, for wherever this good is coming because of this incident. Because the universe is already contriving for you, and you don't know how it's going to work for you. How
does somebody who thinks we're crazy talking about this get to that point? Like for me, it's been book after book and reading, learning. How do you recommend someone gets to that point where they can be grateful for something like that?
Yeah. So
I mean, you just get cheated on. Like, how do you be grateful for that when everything's hurting, your life's dumped on its head?
When you get cheated, thank you for ending the relationship now, so that I know something else is coming. Like you just
the right person.
Know something else is coming.
Something else is always coming, right?
Yes, and that's it. It's like, this was meant for me. You just affirm it, and you know it, and you choose that. You choose it over and over and over again, even if it may not feel completely authentic to you. You just know that something greater is coming because of the incident. Everything's working for you. I mean, you look at, Steve Jobs always has, it gets repeated a lot, this quote of like, it's basically regarding, you don't know the moments like of dots that I'm going to butcher the quote, so I'm not going to say it. But basically, it's like we don't know the path of like why what happens to us right now. But when we look back, we realize that everything that happened has worked for us. It was because it was for us. And so it's like if anyone's struggling to get to what you were sharing about, how do you get to the people? Like if they're not able to be that right now, if it's difficult for them, then you look back, it's like, oh, you know what? I was stronger because of that happened. You know, I was able to mentor that person because
that's definitely what I've done a lot is like, oh, because of that now I'm That's interesting. And are you a big believer it's not necessarily what happens to you, but it's more how you react on what happens to you?
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, a difference between reaction and response is reaction can be so.
You got such better words you got way better way of wording this stuff.
No, but it's true.
I love it. I'm going to steal some stuff off you.
Reaction is just, it's unconscious. It's like you're not present. Responding is being conscious of how I can
that's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
So that is the truth. Exactly what you were just asking.
Yeah, you word this stuff like very well. I love it. And so we've gone over the relationships and give me a little bit more on the finances.
Yeah, what would you like to ask?
I mean, you're talking relationships affect your finances, different things attract. What else can you kind of go into depth on that?
Yeah, so I teach this a lot, and this is very powerful to witness. I mentioned that the relationships of most highest and utmost importance is the relationship you actually have with your mother and your father.
Okay.
They are the example coming into the world of what even God is or universe is, you know. And so some people have a judgment toward a higher power because how they were taught was from their mother or father, from a living belief. Some people I've witnessed to think God is judgmental because their father was very judgmental. You know, so it's very important to look at where you stand in your relationship with your mother and your father. Typically what happens is if there's any blocks in the body, ailments, health issues, or just regular blocks in life in general, it tends to be related to the matriarch, the mother. And what happens in financial stability and security, any blocks there tends to be with the father, the patriarch, and the masculine side. So even me, I have a great relationship with my father, and I witnessed sometimes if there was ever a block in any of how I was showing up in my finances. And even though my father is an amazing man, such a loving like embodiment of a divine masculine and such a good person, I had no blocks with my father. But what I witnessed within myself when I was asking myself, I teach a wealth process, and I was in the wealth process meditation for myself. And I witnessed how, because I put my father so high and how good of a man he is, I was falling short of my own way because I didn't feel worthy to show to him how much he's given me, so much love, so much provision, so much support, that like what I was doing or what I was doing in the world, I always wanted to show like some level of like success to show him that like I'm doing so well because of all the things you've given me, right? And at some level it was like this unconscious desire of like judging the self and not feeling completely appeased in his eyes because I put him so high on a pedestal. So it's like not even as on a pedestal, I just witnessed in my own journey, in my own process, like even if you have had such a great childhood and all the things, it's and even to revert back to your question, is it your own like natural response or reaction? It's like when I was going in my process, it's like, oh, there's something in me that my own belief about not being good enough is stopping me from succeeding into the next level. So it's always taking an awareness of where am I honestly, and can I look back in my relationships? Like what's the block here? If this is happening again and again, I have the power to create the change. Let me look at my relationships. Let me look at back. What's happening in my what's happening with my father or mother? Or is there something else in a past relationship that I haven't healed? If something's coming up in that area, or what's taking place? Is there some hurt here? Because forgiveness is not a one-time thing. It's over and over and over.
Okay.
And even in that relationship where I was betrayed, years later, I saw something. I remembered a memory in that relationship, and I was like, ick. And I felt
kind of triggers you or something, right?
And then I was like, oh, there's more here. And it's not him, it was me. It was me who didn't feel comfortable. It was me who didn't feel accepted. And it was like, oh, it's me. So let me love that part of me that didn't feel
That's
accepted.
interesting. I had a dream last night, and it was like my ex.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was exactly, but obviously there's something still there for me to have a dream 6 years later about it. So maybe that's something I need to dive in and be aware of and work on. Okay. So you mentioned like limited beliefs. Talk to me about that. Do you feel like we all struggle with limited beliefs? Does that go back to our relationships? How do we get past that? How do we conquer the world if we want to?
Ooh, conquer the world. So.
I mean, everyone's got their own way of doing that, right?
Yeah. I mean, even me, I get to teach people how to break through, and I've witnessed people
break through.
Yes, I've witnessed people on my online journey of transformation. I've witnessed everyone in the class, like 6 months later, all triple their income. All of them went far and beyond, and it's like, oh my, it's really the inner work. So the limiting the beliefs is actually to become aware of the limiting belief. It's one thing to, that's why life can be, some people can say, like, have perceptions about life being tricky or hard and but it's because we're so unconscious of our limited beliefs that's stopping us from living the life that we're meant to, right?
That's interesting. So where do those limiting beliefs come from, and what are some examples of those?
Yeah, so I've mentioned before that a lot of it can come from early programming. It's cultural, it's social, it's collective. You know, we can say that it's everyone and it's no one. Like, we can't take responsibility for the beliefs and the thoughts that are coming through us, because it's everyone's partaking. It's the news, it's the music, it's generations before us, and it's not yours also. So you have to know that you have to detach yourself, because the thoughts that come through, it's part of the collective thought sphere. It's not yours. You know, sometimes you'll walk down like an alley and you think like, oh, something bad's gonna happen. It's because in that energy, or from cultural programming, from movies, it's the thought is not ours.
That's interesting. Do you know who Alex Hormozi is?
No, tell me.
He's a entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur. He put out a lot of good content. Saw a video yesterday, and the guy, he was being interviewed. He's like, what's the number one thing that led to your success? He goes, luck. He goes, my dad was a doctor, and the conversations, the environment that I was around made me ahead of the game from day one. The words, the vocabulary people were using, the type of conversations, the ideas, and that goes into his limiting belief was probably a lot higher than, say, mine or yours, just due to his upbringing alone, right?
He said luck, right?
He said luck.
What you know what's so interesting is all of his environment was intentional.
Oh, okay. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, if you were telling me that he was surrounded with that environment, with the vocabulary he kept saying, the language, all of that is intentional. People's words, if they're conscious, and the language of what they're sharing, and his parents' upbringing for him, it's intentional for their children to be raised in that. It wasn't luck. It was very intentional. But yes. But
I mean, isn't it lucky that he was born in that family with that type of environment?
I would say luck is something that I don't personally, I believe in divine circumstance. So
that's why I love talking to you, because you get a whole different perspective on this.
Just because someone was grown up in a different environment than someone else, I don't consider that luck. Someone could be in a really, really poor environment and have a high state of consciousness because of it, versus someone who was raised with all money and is a drug addict, you know, and it's like you were saying, the way you perceive. So I would say that he was graced. He was intentionally brought through a family that held such high regard, where he was able to be embodied in that type of education. You know, all souls come to planet Earth with the choice to come. It's not like anybody comes to this planet because they were forced to. And we do choose. It's said that we choose our parents before we come to this planet. So depending on even past lives of how we showed up, it shows up. We're always in service to fulfilling ourselves in every life. And that's why, you know, depending on what you believe, whatever that is, everyone has their own path to have a personal connection to spirit, to source. You don't even have to have a name for it. Even atheists have some level of belief in not if something, right? But even some atheists are some of the most spiritual people. They don't even realize that they're practicing the spiritual practice of self-care, or meditation or something. My point being is it does not even need to have a name, that it's having a connection to yourself, that your soul evolves. And when you recognize and you honor and practice on your soul and love and have some awareness of generosity and give, multiple lifetimes of service to the self and to the world, you show up in lifetimes where you can be of greater service. You're positioned of greater service. I'm saying that because I do believe in past lifetimes, and I've witnessed people who show up in this world with such great gifts, and it's from multiple lifetimes of honing in on the self so that you can give greater. And that's why even they say in biblical source in Christianity, it's like, how to give so much in this life, so for even to reach heaven. But really for me, myself personally, it's like you give so much in all that you can through the gifts that you're given now, and you will always continue to be in a higher state of consciousness, whether you choose to come back in this life or you go into another state of consciousness, heaven. It's like you'll be given the reward, but give now, give of yourself now, receive like the gifts that you've been given now and use them.
Okay. So I have a question. Are you religious? Are you spiritual?
I'm spiritual.
What is the difference?
So there's a difference because there are man-made laws that were created within the church that are man-made, right? And in spirituality, you have a deep personal connection to the universe that you don't need to go to someone to give you permission to have, right?
Gotcha.
Or deepen your connection. Everyone's journey is unique, and
there's no status or check-in or requirement or okay.
And they say too, the most corrupt countries are the ones where someone can forgive you of your sins and you can keep doing those sins again and again, right?
Yeah.
Versus you take full accountability of why you're creating these cyclical patterns, and you take radical responsibility. You do the inner work and you're liberated, right?
So would you say, do you think religion isn't real?
Oh no, I believe it's real and it serves a purpose.
Okay.
I love what Michael Beckwith says. I don't know if you've heard of Michael Beckwith.
No.
He's a great divine channel. He has a church in Los Angeles called Agape, and he also is an Oprah, very amazing conscious leader. And he says that religion is really meant to not only just grow us, but to a point of even we outgrow religion, that religiosity itself will serve a purpose for us to come into such deep connection that we can outgrow the religion itself and have a high connection to spirit and go to...
So it's like a stepping stone.
Yeah, so it does. I do believe in the power of religion, and I actually love church.
You go to church,
I'm a Christian, non-denominational. At the same time, you take what is yours, right? Some practices and some places you can really deeply resonate, and maybe something the pastor says is not something for you, and then you don't need to take it. So it's a matter of self-awareness and truth of what aligns for you.
Okay.
And really taking in what is the word for you. But it really is very beautiful to go to church and to have a community, right?
Yeah, no, I was just curious because that's it's very interesting.
Yeah, and church is the people.
It's the community. Yeah, I didn't grow up with religion. I'm not religious. It's generally what you grow up with. I would definitely like to say I'm on the spiritual side. I'm getting more on that side. But yeah, it's fascinating to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I respect. And, I went to the World Parliament of Religions in 2009 in Australia. That's actually...
Oh, yeah.
And it was incredible. The Dalai Lama was there. Sikhs, Jews, Muslims. I learned more about the Mother Mary and the lineage of Jesus Christ through the Muslim religion, because they speak a lot about the female archetype in their Quran. And so it was so beautiful to witness all the faiths come together in recognition of each other. And that's really what religion is to recognize. One man, leader in one of the countries, he stood up and he said, so basically we're all pagan. And everybody started laughing because we all honor the earth. Like all true roots of the religions really come back to honoring your neighbor and loving your neighbor.
So you're saying there's no right or wrong way. It's kind of what works for you.
I grew up in Unity, which is a non-denominational church, and sister also of Agape. Maya Angelou was a Unity practitioner, and so was, and Oprah recognizes Unity. And it's just, I grew up in the understanding and knowing that all true paths lead to spirit, to God, and to honor and recognize those paths. So
Okay.
I grew up learning about Taoism and learning about meditation and learning about Buddhism, learning about Jesus Christ. We honored the paths because you can outgrow it. You know, people go into Buddhism, Christianity, and it's just like, you, as long as you find yours and you stick to a committed practice to connect to yourself, that's more powerful than anything.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
And then your business, talk to me about, what do you do exactly?
Yeah, so Yin City, like Sin City, Las Vegas. Sin City,
Yin City.
Yin City is Yin City is global. It's really about really, especially because living here in Las Vegas, it is such a crazy contrast, and it's a beautiful contrast. Everything goes in Las Vegas. The light and the dark are all in play, and there is no judgment toward the dark, right? At the same time,
You mean dark as in like sin and gambling, drinking?
Be, and it does, see, the dark can be that, but in the divine feminine, the yin is the silence, the yin is the void, the yin is the creative energy that comes from being in the silence, in the dark, in the waters, and it's beautiful. And so it's also, and that's why I made my business Yin City, it's also the acceptance of the shadow, of the dark, that can I accept this part of me that exists in me? Because what exists in the world exists in me too. And so when I can witness, okay, look at me, I'm being a little manipulative here. Like, can I witness and accept that aspect of myself? Yeah, I can. So the balance of yin and yang, and the masculine, which is, the masculine is the order, the prioritizer, the responsibility, and it's also the balance of the flow and the acceptance and the creation, which is yin. So Yin City, Las Vegas, Yin City is global, but we're based here in Vegas.
Yep.
And I utilize movement and meditation to help people to awaken to their purpose, their power, their potential. I'm in corporate wellness mainly, and I have individual transformation. So I teach in corporate and
So you're doing corporate groups?
I do.
Okay. How long have you been doing this for?
Since 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. I founded my company much later in 2018. I've been leading groups since 2013.
Okay.
And Yin City was founded in 2018.
And when you say leading groups, what do you do exactly? Like, what size groups? Are you traveling? What do you do with the groups?
Yeah, multiple. So I guide people through processes. Firstly, in the corporate level, I come in and I lead mindfulness trainings, or I teach yoga and movement and meditation. On a deeper level, I lead retreats.
You do?
I do have a French retreat in May.
French?
Yeah.
How goes that?
27. And then in those retreats, as well as in workshops throughout the city, and I do travel for these workshops, I guide people through processes, which are really, really intentional for helping people to not only relax, but break through any type of, as mentioned before, the unconscious hurts.
Okay, going back to everything we talked about. Okay.
Are rooted in our wealth.
Is it different for everybody? Is it a standard week? How does it generally work?
Yeah, so it's really, on an individual basis, I do have clients come to me and I guide people through their processes, and I work with them that way. On a group level, and I do have a monthly series at Area 15, and I do guide people through a workshop with my business partner there. On a group level, it is very unique to every individual, and so I do guide people through the wealth process, a relationship process. I guide people through, of course, the intentional vision process, and I do guide people through an ancestor process, which is incredibly powerful.
That's interesting.
A lot of our relationships and our wealth is also rooted to our ancestors.
Very interesting. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the retreat sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Have you done a lot of retreats?
I have, yeah.
Where have you been? How big are the groups?
Oh yeah.
Is it male, female?
It's male and female, yeah. What's interesting is I personally too, just clients tend to be male as well.
Oh really?
Because men need the sacred space to feel safe, to be able to process.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought it'd be more predominantly female.
Yeah,
but
it tends, on an individual basis, I have more males.
interesting.
And then the women for the groups for sure. So
Okay.
women and men for the groups I love, because we need more men to feel safe, to be able to be vulnerable, to create conscious relationship in the world, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then conscious generations after them.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the biggest retreat you've done?
Let's see. In Hawaii, I led a day retreat event, about like 30 to 40.
Oh, that's cool. In Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
How cool is that? Like-minded people together, helping them grow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But guiding meditations and processes up to 700 people.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
What's the most rewarding thing you've done for people that you like? Have you got specific cases?
My God.
Where you're like, oh my God, this is like, you tell everybody and anybody about it.
It's incredibly rewarding for me.
And that's why you do it, right?
It's why I do it. Yes. It's fulfilling. It's so fulfilling. There's nothing like being not just the vessel, but being of service to people who are not only transforming before your very eyes, breaking through, feeling connected, but bringing them back to themselves in a way they've never felt.
And also like teaching them to fish, right? You're teaching them skills that they don't need you or eventually they won't need you. They're able to do it themselves, which is probably one of the most powerful things.
Yes.
They're not relying on you.
Yes. You need those tools on your own, because I won't be in your ear every time. But
yeah,
I do get those requests. They're like, can I just have you all the time you're recording, have you guide me? And it's like, you have the tools, and only you and source or universe will move forward in a way that's unique to you, that my words can never be for you. You know, you will find the words and the resonance and the spirit and the activation inside you. It's unique to everyone. It's an inner song that everybody has.
I like that. So what's some things that really stand out for you?
Stand out as in how?
As in lives that you have changed and how you have changed them.
Oh my goodness.
What are some couple examples?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So I will share, oh my gosh, one of my students, I cannot believe her transformation. She literally moved to Paris. She, like, after our journey last year, she'll watch this podcast and laugh that I mentioned her.
Really?
Because she had so much emotional, I would say, disconnect with her own father and her parents. And for the first time, she felt a presence and divine connection through the journey, and chose so much with commitment to do all of the work. She did the movement, the practice, the meditation, and she just broke through again and again and again and again. And her most, like, she hadn't talked to her dad in like a couple years as well. And that's why I'm saying so much of it is rooted in the parent. And then again, got her first $5,000 client, and then another $5,000 client, and then another, and then moved to Paris. And it's just like her abundance and her thoughts are, I mean, that's just one that's coming to mind, because I witnessed who she was before she came, and she did not have the awareness of this ever evolving connection with herself. And now she's so highly more emotional, intelligent, and spiritual than I've ever seen.
Gotcha.
And then other people, of course, manifesting wealth. Like, I've witnessed people that are like, oh, I got a car. Like, they like, oh, I just manifested like this money. Now I have a brand new car, like in a week. And like, look at you. And they're like, oh, I like, or a relationship shortly after, like after your relation. Oh, one of my favorite manifestations. One of the women who would come to my classes regularly, especially during the pandemic online, through a process, felt the urge to call upon having a child. And like within such a short amount of time, she became pregnant. And she now has this amazing, like, I'm just like, she credits that. She's like, it was your process. It was your meditation. I manifested this soul, you know? It's just,
love it. That's awesome.
It's magic.
All right. And then kind of to finish up with, I want to know about you and your daily habits.
Ooh, good one.
What are your daily habits?
Yeah, you know, I'm honing in more and more on that, because you can outgrow your old daily habits as well.
Absolutely.
You know? I recently, what really does feel so good for me, and this is just also because I'm a dancer by nature. And Yeah, I'm a performer, dance.
What type of dancing you like?
I used to do hip hop, and
Okay.
I used to dance for backup in the Philippines and here. Do you remember Mims? He's saying, "This is why I'm hot."
Yeah.
I like backup dance.
Oh, did you really?
So my point is, so daily habits, like really in the morning, you must find some form of silence for yourself, even if just for a moment, like literally if it's a minute to.
So you think at least like
connect.
a minimum of a minute?
I mean, that minute will be greater than zero.
That's a good point.
Start where you are.
I like that.
If it's 30 seconds and you wake up before getting out of bed instead of looking at your phone, I like 30 seconds is better than
I did that this
nothing.
morning. It was probably a minute before I did anything.
Yeah.
But it's something I'm working on.
Yeah. I honestly get up and it can be spontaneous, but sometimes before even getting, I witnessed this too, before even getting up yesterday, I put on something that I knew would feed my heart, and I just sat in bed and I digested it.
Okay.
Whether that's a word, a motivational sound, or like it's motivational and inspirational and grounding for you so that you start your day with that intention. And it was good. I listened to just Danielle Laporte. She like spoke on what's your core desired feeling. And I sat there in bed before getting up and I was like, what's my desired feeling? What do I desire to feel? Not what do I desire to acquire or make happen. What do I want to feel?
That's interesting.
So I really rooted that in, and then I got up, and that was my form of connection for that day.
Okay.
Sometimes I wake up and I just sit in front of my altar and I just breathe, and I do that a lot anyways. I just sit and I take that moment in. I also I learned this to really just go outside right away as soon as you do your routine. And I breathe in the sunlight. You open your eyes. You look at green shrubbery. You train the body's natural circadian rhythm to open up to the day and digest vitamin D through your eyes, through your skin. And
it's amazing how good that can feel, right?
Yeah, so good. I like to take a walk. But this last week I was nursing a cold, so I was really just being gentle with myself. But sunlight, and that's my form too. I use that as a meditation. I can sit at a park and I have that connection to myself. And then I go back and I go through my day and I can just writing down obviously what is the priority. Making it 3, just simplifying it for yourself, like 3 priorities today that I know I can make a win for myself.
Oh wow, okay. So you're doing very like simple things,
yeah,
but very powerful things.
I need to move the needle through, and it's like I have been known to myself to not get things done because I didn't because I got overwhelmed or distracted.
Okay.
Simple, just so that I can be proud of what I accomplished today.
So you're doing like some type of spiritual, some type of connection, a little bit of movement, a little bit of journaling, in your own little way of doing it.
Yeah, or even if it's before I open my laptop, even if I go to the office and I just check in, even if it's texting to myself, these are the 3 things. And I can tell you I'm not always consistent because every day could be different, but the most consistent that I am with the inner connection in the morning or right when I wake up or creating the tone of the day for myself, that's if I don't do everything else, that's the one thing I choose to do.
Very interesting.
How about you?
My habits?
Yeah, or something you commit to regularly.
What I do is I develop one habit and I get it consistent, and then it becomes second nature.
Yes.
And then I build upon that.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of people try to do, like you said, too much at one time. Don't do it. They'll do it for a day or 2, and then they'll never do it again. So like always talk about like small increments, little baby steps. So now on a daily basis, I have a lot of good habits now.
Yeah, you do.
So I journal every day. I do a cold plunge or a cold shower every day. I fast every day for at least 18 to 20 hours. I generally exercise every day unless it's a day off because I'll listen to my body. I'm now meditating every day. Now I'm in the process of adding breath work on a daily basis. That's something new. And the cold plunges led to the breath work. So I'm always just trying to just instill new habits on new habits and new habits, because I think it's so important to, the better your habits, the better you're set up for the day. like you said, you write down 3 things you're going to do. Before I'll journal. Before I start my day, I literally have a checklist.
Yeah, you do that the night before.
And I'll kind of prioritize like which ones I need to do first. And if I don't knock off the whole thing, it's not the end of the world. But the next day I'm like, hey, I've still got these ones to go. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of some of my habits. Yeah. And I read every day. I listen to audiobooks maybe 3 hours a day. Good so that's another thing I do. Constantly growing. And then I have this podcast. And then if I'm watching TV, I'm generally on YouTube researching breath work or something I can learn from.
So good.
Yeah.
You know what I learned from one of my mentors is help one person every day. And I will tell you what a difference it makes to make sure that you communicate or connect with someone, even if it's just a text or even on IG, if it's a stranger you just blasted love on their account, is to connect and make sure that you are giving of yourself. And that will make the biggest difference. If you ever are in a funk, to give of yourself, to be generous with your time, to share some thoughts of like gratitude or appreciation towards someone.
So if you're in a funk, help someone else.
Yeah,
I like that.
You can get yourself out
I like that. I'm going to try that.
Of service, you feel better.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. That was absolutely
fun.
Pleasure. I very much enjoyed that conversation. Yeah. I learned a lot. I hope you guys did too. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Keep it up. Yeah.